you search on Orbitz. Like every single American Airlines flight, Orbitz doesn't have them. But you'll find all 3,400 of them at AA.com every day.
You know rheumatoid arthritis means pain. But you may not know it can also mean destruction. Not just of your joints, but of the things you love to do. And the longer you live with the aching, swelling, and stiffness, the closer you may be to having your favorite things taken away from you. But you can take action today. Go to RA.com for your free joint profile so you can better talk to your rheumatologist about protecting your joints.
Simple online collaboration will change the way you work, and perhaps a whole lot more. Visit GoToMeeting.com/easy and sign up for your free 30-day trial.
Now that Osama bin Laden is out of the picture, pressure is building for the U.S. to get out of Afghanistan as quickly as possible. After 10 years, billions of dollars, the loss of nearly 1,500 American lives, Al-Qaeda and the Taliban are still launching attacks inside Afghanistan, and the U.S. is still trying to win the hearts and minds of ordinary Afghans. In the New Yorker magazine this week, John Lee Anderson has written a dramatic account of just how hard it is fighting on both fronts. I spoke to him a short time ago via Skype. Mr. Anderson, thanks so much for joining us. You have an amazing article in this week's New Yorker, and the title of it is Force and Futility. Is it time to leave Afghanistan? And so, what is your answer? Is it time just to pick up and get out?
Nothing's as simple as that anymore, unfortunately. You know, we're too far into this to simply leave. I personally am of the opinion, after having been there quite a bit in recent months, that we should have a sort of leaner, meaner, smaller approach to the country. I don't think we're winning over any hearts and minds at this point. The Osama bin Laden death, of course, throws a new possibility into the equation, and I think it's early days to really call that. But I do think that we have a serious issue with the sheer numbers of people we have there.
Well, your article is powerful because of the stories it tells. I mean, it's a very granular, on-the-ground recitation of what life there is like. I mean, you get the sense that the counterinsurgency effort simply isn't winning over the hearts and minds that we need to try to come over to our side. You tell the story of a Lieutenant Colonel Lutsky and a tribal leader by the name of Paka Khan, a story of deception and tribalism. Tell us about that, because it really captures, I think, the angles and the multiple facets of these relationships.
Well, that's right. Well, you know, here we are 10 years later, and we have, you know, good young lieutenant colonels like Lieutenant Colonel Steve Lutsky, who had a year to make good on his time there, and he was a very, as they say in the military, kinetic guy, meaning he was a gung-ho soldier. He wanted to get things done. It was a matter of pride for him. But you know, the warlords and the locals see us coming, and they see a guy coming in. They know he's going to be there for 12 months, and then they're going to have to deal with someone else that's new. And so Pacha Khan is this extraordinary figure. He's an old school warlord, and he's mostly been on our side in the last few years, but he went through a period where he wasn't and was a bandit. And so Lutsky went to see him. It took me along with him at his lair in the mountains there in Khost along the border with Pakistan. And essentially was asking Pacha Khan, who has this great turban and a big dyed mustache and eyebrows that meet in the middle, if he would set up what Petraeus calls a local police initiative, which is essentially a paramilitary effort aimed at bolstering the transition that we're hoping to get with the Afghan National Army, which is a pretty abysmal experiment so far. Essentially, villagers who would arm themselves and provide a buffer between us and the Taliban. And he was asking Pacha Khan if he would do this. Pacha Khan countered with, how about you arm and equip a group of my guys, and then we'll tell you where the bad people are. You take them in Apache helicopters and bomb them, okay? And how about that? And it was this kind of, literally this kind of horse trading session went on, and Lutsky, very diplomatic, said, well, let's consider both options, but how about the other? And essentially what he wanted was Pachahan to arm up locals to go after the Haqqanis, who are his rivals. So to a certain extent, getting involved in tribal politics, which, 10 years in, we're now seeing as a possible solution to the fact that we don't have an entirely reliable Afghan partner.
Well, can we go further than that and say not only do we not have a reliable partner, we are being used by them and being sucked into the quagmire, the swamp of their own local politics, and as you say, they see us as a transitory force, and they know we'll be gone shortly, and therefore all they do is use our assets, money, weaponry, to reposition themselves for the ultimate fight down the road.
There would be people, and I spoke to them, who would argue with that and point out lots of areas in which, and certain personalities in which, this is working better than others. And yet it comes down to the same old things that I was sitting in on 10 years ago, which was, negotiating with a rustic local figure over cups of tea about setting up an honest, dual relationship. And there seems to be just as much insecurity on our side about that now as there was then, if not more in some cases.
Lieutenant Colonel Lutsky is now home, I gather, back in the States. Have you spoken to him recently?
He's back in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, just outside of Nashville, where in fact President Obama visited the other day. And he's a loyal officer. He's a patriot. He's not going to speak out of turn. He's still in uniform. We had a conversation a few days ago. We were going mostly back over what the experience had been when I'd been with him recently. And he tried to put a brave face on things. He felt that he had achieved some things, and I couldn't quibble. Of course, you put your life on the line, you want to know that it was worth something, and no doubt he left some positive mark. The one thing I would say is that I heard from no American the entire time I was in Afghanistan that they felt that we were winning there. It struck me afterwards, actually. No one actually said to me, we're going to prevail at the end, we're winning. And, reading between the lines, I would say that most people feel that we're not.
You know what? As you just said, it's often what isn't said that is most powerful. All right, Mr. Anderson, amazing article. And as you say, we're stuck between force and futility. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thanks for watching. Pierce Morgan Tonight starts right now.
Tonight, portrait of a terrorist, the secret life of Osama bin Laden, the real face of terror. A bearded old man wrapped in a blanket, watching himself on TV. How did this man run a global terror network, keeping the superpowers of the West at bay for years? Who will lead Al-Qaeda now? What do we have to fear? Tonight, a big debate, the legacy of bin Laden. And ask Donald Rumsfeld, is torture a tool that America can't afford to give up? Rudy Giuliani, our big cities be on high alert with the death of bin Laden, get President Obama re-elected, and Bob Woodward, the intelligence bonanza streaming out of bin Laden's hideout. This is Piers Morgan Tonight. Good evening. Justice done. That's what Pakistan's Prime Minister says about the death of Osama bin Laden. He insists that allegations his country looked the other way while the Al-Qaeda leader was living right under their noses are, quote, absurd. We'll study that. We're also learning that the raid that killed Osama bin Laden, the biggest victory of the war on terror so far, almost didn't happen. President Obama was told it was just a 50-50 chance of killing the Al-Qaeda chief. He decided to go ahead anyway with the mission with spectacular results. Joining me now is Donald Rumsfeld, former Secretary of Defense for President George W. Bush, and the author of Known and Unknown, a memoir, the proceeds of which from the book go to veteran organizations. Secretary Rumsfeld, absolutely fascinating week. Tell me this, when you